Welcome to the latest news in the Noah Presgrove case. Finally, we are here with one of the more complex, detailed map analysis in regard to one particular event which happened among strangers encountering activity from the so-called party house and a potential witness which may have been responsible, involved in some way with Noah Presgrove's death, the build-up to it, or post-death, depending on the time of death, and then strangers who are witnesses to seeing possibly Noah alive at one point, and then maybe the after effects without the context for them because they're strangers to Noah. There's a lot to wrap one's mind around, and whether it really happened or not, and stuff like this when it comes out now, when it should have come out back then, or maybe it did, but privately. But now it's public because it's allowed. But yeah, it's strange. But this is the thing, working with what we've got, making sense of it, applying it to the map. Some people complain and some people moan, but there could be something to it. And if not, then it's about working out what really is going on. As said, just keep up with the same process and methods as usual. Nothing changes there. Remain consistent. I'll give you a backstory as well as to where some of these posts and comments were made. Then we apply it to the maps. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten the other supposed events which were talked about around on that day. All of a sudden, it seems like there's lots of activity around the casino. Which one, though? I am guessing it's probably the one at or near Terrell, the town. There's been a couple of events which have happened over that way, all on the same day or close to. And then some other stuff as well. So when it builds these stories and details over time, then it puts certain locations on the map and they become more known. More activity that occurs at a specific place, it does raise eyebrows, especially if it's close or around or at the time of the event with Noah's outcome. So join me today, especially for this live premiere. Share your thoughts, reactions in the live chat on the right side of the screen. And if you're watching on catch up, and for anyone else, let me know what you think about it. Do you believe in the story or not about the blue sports car leaving the party house property and being involved in some way? Who do you think it could belong to anyway, just in general, as in a sports car? And when it comes to party footage, which we've seen, did we see any sports cars in the background, any blue ones in the background caught on camera, or anything like that? We've only got limited party footage, and part of it is from Caden Pressey's point of view when it was 1:05 in the morning of Monday, and it only showed like 2 or 3 vehicles in the back, and I didn't see any blue cars from my point of view. But after that point, who knows if anyone else came or left in between, and where the vehicles may have been parked down that road, that's another question. But drop your comments below. Thoughts, questions, answers, thoughts, theories are all welcome under the video, and I can respond back later. If you want to support my channel in any way, or if you want to support my channel in a more anonymous way, don't worry. All the links are down below in the comment section, pinned message with the links to follow through with. And shout out to those that have supported over time. If you simply want to catch up on the recent coverage by me and for the full playlist of the Noah Presgrove case, that's all available. Top right corner where the I symbol is up there. Just click on it, you get the drop down menu box, and then it's all accessible. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. The first post on the case discussion group. What follows after that will be the screenshots provided within and the odd screenshot within the comments section, just certain points of interest. Tim summarized. So this person has come forwards and is the exact story that Cheryl tells us. Cheryl who? Cheryl Johnson, is that the name? So here we have now a second corroboration that there was a blue sports car on the road pulling out of the party house property driveway onto the highway. If the anonymous person would like to share any more information, that would be really appreciated, as this is a potential big clue. The friend pulled out 20 minutes after the 5:15 person who saw a naked kid in the bar ditch. That would be at about 5:35, almost exactly the same time Tyler Hoodman would have driven by, and within minutes of when I believe Noah died on 81. But look, There's a lot of different times to work with. You're going to see a couple of them on the map later. It might seem a bit too much, but I'll break it down bit by bit to make it easier for you. So, first of all, a person called anonymous member. Why do they have to be anonymous? To protect themselves, to avoid being attacked, critiqued, or because it's easier to be anonymous, so then if it backfires or it turns out to be BS, well, they get away with it. You can look at it both ways, skeptical and in an empathetic way. Nevertheless, Anonymous had said, I know a friend of mine, but their friend had left the casino, and another person, which is Anonymous member's brother, left about 20 minutes. So the brother left 20 minutes afterwards. But Anonymous member's friend had left 20 minutes earlier. So there's a 20-minute time difference, and that's quite important. That Anonymous says, first thing my friend said to my brother is, did you see that kid walking down the Barditch naked? Time was around 5:15 or 5:20, and said that was the first thing he said to my brother. Right. But whilst the friend may have seen that, what did the brother see? Miranda, just to make sure I have this right, your friend left the casino 20 minutes before your brother did and saw a naked person walking down the road. Your brother saw the blue Charger and brake lights, but nothing else on the highway at the time he came through. And Anonymous says, right, as in yes. Then they say, I believe the person who thought that they hit a pig was what happened to Noah, but OHP said wasn't hit and run, though, so who knows? Wait, what? So this is to do with Chris Pyatt. Chris Pyatt, a guy that Alicia referred to in some audio messages to Joyce Begow once. Alicia called Chris Pyatt a big liar and you can't trust him. And then Chris Pyatt spoke out and called out Alicia on one of my videos in the comment section, if you remember. Chris Pyatt hit something when he was down the highway on that day, as in the exact location, I'm not too sure, but on the 81 highway, and later contacted police because he felt guilty or may have been responsible for Noah. And then in the end, it was cleared and it was all fine and okay. The person did the right thing. But why is Anonymous member referring to Chris Pyatt? I believe the person who thought that they hit a pig or a hog is what happened to Noah. I believe, an opinion, a thought. How do you go from talking about you have a friend and you also have a brother related to you, and they were both at a casino together? So your friend is also friends with your brother then? In fact, your brother is friends with your friend, like a triangle. But where does Chris Pyatt come into this? Was that just a passing thought by Anonymous member? Or does Anonymous know of Chris Pyatt? Or his friends somehow? It's just randomly being put in there amongst, the main thing that's been mentioned at the top. So you let me know your thoughts there. And Tim, any chance you wouldn't mind messaging me? I would love to ask some more questions. Now, the thing is, with this anonymous member, you had Brenda, I think, and Andrea, and they questioned Anonymous, did you follow it up? You're talking about it now, but what happened back then? Did you tell the family? Did you tell the police? What? And Anonymous did not respond back. They just disappeared, which is a bit typical, isn't it? A person comes forwards, publicly of all places, reveals supposedly shocking details, supposedly shocking timestamps and possible facts, which may not really be. And then when people get the breadcrumbs and a taste for it, they obviously are intrigued and want to ask more questions. And then the other person doesn't follow it up anymore. Is it a matter of the person can only say so much and then they've got to disappear before they're in danger? Why didn't they just reach out to someone through Facebook DMs privately and reveal the full truth? It's strange. And then a little addition here, looks like within a comment section of a screenshot, Anonymous said, my brother said he saw a blue Charger, I guess a Dodge Charger. What year exactly? 2015 or later, earlier? And it came off the Party House property, and it hit his brake in area where Noah was found. But they went on. They, as in both vehicles. Oh, there you go. There's Brenda's and Andrea's comments. Your brother didn't see anything, or he saw a blue Charger come off the Party Road. Which is it? Did you pass that information on to OHP? Good questions. No follow-up. And then here, anonymous member 441, the encounter I'm talking about. So it looks like that anonymous member 620 is also anonymous member 441. So why are they using a different Facebook account all of a sudden to comment on this? Is it because they were using a temporary anonymous account and then deleted it, deactivated, they've come back under a new account username? Who knows? Or they've changed the username ever since. I'm not too sure how Facebook works because I can't stand the layout and just the confusion on that bloody page. But beside that, the encounter I'm talking about with the kid walking, as in the one with no clothes on, walking in the ditch, and then my brother seeing a blue Charger is say encounter that Cheryl is talking about. Right, so the person can't really spell. Great. Tim, thank you for sharing this. I find very interesting. I mean, how crazy is it to see a naked guy, obviously Noah, and then to see a blue sports car? I only know of one owner of a blue sports car at that party. Is that Isaac? Is it Isaac? I can't remember the first name. Camarillo? Was that what people were referring to? One of Justin Roy's nephews? And ever since, it's been back and forth. One side believe it to belong to one of Justin Roy's nephews, and then the other side believe it to belong to Colton Newton. Colton, dark vehicle, grey, whatever. And then Justin Roy's nephew, supposedly a blue car. But then in between, you've got the biological mother, Sarah Smith, that said Colton has never owned a sports car, nor a muscle car, only a pickup. And if it really is a Dodge Charger, or whatever you call it, that's a muscle car. It's not a pickup, from what I can remember. And I know people could say, well, why is Tim Daniel assuming that it's Noah Presgrove that's naked because Anonymous doesn't accept or acknowledge that? I think at the end of the day, basing it off if the event and the witness is truly true, it's more than likely going to be Noah, because how many people are going to be naked early hours of the morning walking down or near to a highway? Really no one, with the exception being Noah Presgrove, based on the stories of what we've heard of. Tim said to Anonymous, do you remember if your brother's friend had any more details about what he saw, or just about the naked guy walking, as in alive at that moment? The thing is, this was posted in the comments section by one user, and it might have been from Cheryl Johnson herself, I think. And we'll just read it anyway. Here is the story I got from a man who lives in Ryan, Oklahoma. He left the casino a little after 4 a.m., maybe closer to 4:30. As he was driving home on 81, the highway, a blue Challenger pulled off the road. Right, a Challenger. How did I read it here? A blue Charger. Right, so you got what? A Dodge Charger, and then do you have a Dodge Challenger? What's the difference between a Charger and a Challenger? Is there a big difference? Or could it mean the same thing? I'm not an expert on cars, vehicles, especially not in the US either. So there seems to be a little discrepancy in the description of the vehicle, if you want to put it that way. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Beside that, the Challenger pulled off the road that C and A, as in Carter Combs and Avery, lived on, the party house property, and got behind him. Got up, class riding his bumper, whatever that means, and then the blue sports car flew around him and passed by. He watched them get further ahead of them, and then they stopped in the highway, or on the highway, for a minute. He wasn't sure how long, but it was actually just seconds. It couldn't have been a full minute because he wasn't that far behind them. Okay, I get that. After they stopped for a few seconds, he then watched them take off and head towards Ryan. They were hauling ass because he never did catch up to them after they passed by him. He lost them in the distance ahead. When he got to Ryan, up until the point where he turned off onto his road, which is at the far end of Ryan by the dollar store, he still couldn't see them. after they stopped in the middle of the 81 and they took off, he could see them for a minute or two and then they were gone. So either they turned off somewhere right before Ryan or turned off in Ryan, or they were going so fast that they were already through Ryan and long gone before the guy turned off on his road. He did not recall seeing Noah in the highway at that time, nor did he see his clothes there, but he also was watching them up ahead and didn't pay much attention to the area where they stopped. So what that means to say is this guy, who is the brother to anonymous member 620, basically did not see Noah Presgrove or any clothing. Dead or alive, just did not see Noah, and likely did not see a naked person walking either. And that's understandable, because there is a 20-minute time difference between this brother coming on down and 20 minutes earlier, the friend to that anonymous member. Within 20 minutes, a lot can happen and change. 1 minute, something's there. The next minute, it's not. Something's changed, something's been replaced and added. It's understandable. But as it's worded specifically, whilst this brother may have not seen Noah or clothing, as it reads, he also was watching them up ahead and didn't pay much attention to the area. So it's unknown of. You can't say for definite, you can't say with absolute certainty whether Noah was there or not. Because if you're too focused on other stuff, you're not paying attention to what's around you. And if you're close in proximity to the vehicle in front of you, you don't want a hard brake and crash. You want to be careful with your speed and focus ahead. And if you are close to that vehicle in front of you, by the time you pass by whatever that vehicle stopped there for, you might not have enough time to look to the side of you. Something could have been there, something may have not. It depends. But with that being said, let's head on over to Google Earth now for that visual analysis and the timeline. At first, it may seem quite messy and busy as for all the markers over there, but I will make sense of that shortly. And then all the markers down here. The fact that we've got two places of interest of high activity is quite eye-opening when this case has gone on for so long and all of a sudden now there's all these new markers appearing. And people could question that. But at the end of the day, I am working with what's available, what's being talked about. Do we have absolute hard evidence of all this? No. Is it just words and first or second hand information? Yes. Is it good enough? Maybe not, but there's no harm in doing it in a visual analysis. Because what else can you do at the end of the day? Got to try and make sense of it to understand what's really going on and to see if it overlaps or links with previous events which have been talked about. So when they refer to the casino and going on to Ryan afterwards, that means heading likely north, passing by the party house before that. Well, the casino before the party house would be before Terrell, the town. You got Terrell, the town here. The party house is just over there where you see some of those markers. And if we rotate back this way, down the highway, you've got the casino, this one here. Now we should be familiar with it because we have covered it already. You know, the car park as well. Some have suggested that maybe Tyler Hudman came this far down just to do a turnaround to go back up north, up the highway, 543 onwards or around. So there's a bit of activity as to who could have come on down here to turn around and go back. But if we're focusing on earlier in the timeline, as for the exact time, wasn't given by anonymous member, but maybe Cheryl Johnson or another person who was talking about it did when referring to that so-called brother, in quotation marks, 4:30, around 4:30 when the brother leaves. And then 20 minutes before that, the friend had left, right? So that was like 4:10 when the friend leaves, 4:30 when the brother leaves. This casino here. And this is on the 4th of September 2023. That's why it's significant. But let's not forget, a bit later on, at some point, coming/going, a woman witnessed side by side on the highway. And that was supposedly around 4:48. and she was either coming or going from the casino because I think she worked there at the time. And then you've got the other reference of another woman who was a cleaner interviewed by Kathy Bingham post-death of Noah Presgrove, either in 2023 or 2024 when it occurred, that this cleaner saw 3 guys with Noah Presgrove's hat. Yeah, interesting. If I just put the marker down here, just so you can see visually what it looks like. There's a casino. That's what it looks like over there, River Star Casino. And you had the Highway 81 sign, which we've just gone past, but never mind, that's the car park. So inside of that building, at some point, and this is post-death of Noah Presgrove, but I just wanted to add it in now before it's forgotten. Kathy Bingham, private investigator, doing it free of charge, pro bono, within the Noah Presgrove case, who's also related to, I think, Brylan Sweat, so there is a conflict of interest. At one point, Kathy Bingham stated in a Partners in True Crime interview, I believe, that she had interviewed a woman that was a cleaner that worked there, and at some point in 2023 or 2024, no year actually given, which is stupid, the cleaner witnessed 3 guys in the restroom or the bathroom, toilets, whatever you want to call it. And the 3 guys, or at least one of them, was identified from the party which Noah attended back in 2023 of September. And one of the guys was holding a baseball cap which looked like or could have been Noah Presgrove's, and then they left it either in the bin or on top of the bin. Now, this so-called cleaner, I don't know if they were called Kathy themselves or a different name, but they supposedly left a comment on my YouTube channel yelling and having a go at me, saying, "Why, Raph, you got that wrong. It's not on the bin. It's not inside the bin. It's actually on top. You got to get the technical terms correct." And it's like, whoa, why are you having a go at me? I'm not the one that interviewed you. Have a go at Kathy Bingham, not me. So I don't know why that person had an attitude problem, and I've noticed quite a few humans of certain aspects have an attitude issue within this case or community. Just when there's simple questions or trying to work something out, there's no need for the tenseness, no need to get so defensive. It doesn't do much good. Nevertheless, this so-called cleaner witnessed 3 guys from the so-called party messing with supposedly Noah Presgrove's hat. Why did they have it? Who knows? Who were they as in identity? Unknown of. Nothing came through from that. Kathy Bingham never gave an update after that point. So was it all one big lie? Was it a load of BS? And if it was, what was the point behind it at the end of the day? And why did that cleaner say what they said to Kathy Bingham if they're just a stranger? Are they a part of the mess up in the case? What was the point of all that? If anyone knows, or if you want to share your thoughts, make sure to do so in the comments, wherever. Because it's an important, significant event which has just been neglected ever since. But beside that, we're focusing in what we've learned in recent time. Linking back to the day of Noah's death, you have a friend and then you have a brother to that anonymous member. And both guys were at this casino early hours of Monday morning, which is interesting. But I guess with it being the weekends and Labour Day, time off, hanging out, and I guess the casino being open. Okay. And one of the times given was 4:30, which is interesting because 4:30 is getting rather close to some other times. Not overlapping, but getting close, such as a side-by-side which a woman witnessed when going down that highway, either coming or going from the casino. I say coming or going because at one point the friend of that female witness, I think, said they were leaving the casino, and then it was corrected at another point, but I never saw it corrected, but other people said it was, that the woman was actually going to work at around that time, going up the highway south and not north. So there's a bit of a mess there, but if that woman was driving down the highway at 4:48 and this so-called brother left the casino at 4:30, there's a high chance that that guy and that woman would have passed each other. The guy heading that way and the woman coming down, possibly to here. That's if she was going to work. If she was leaving, well, then she would have been behind the guy and they wouldn't have seen each other likely, based on the timings. But there is a chance that if at 4:48, well, before 4:48, she was already here, and the guy left at 4:30, would they have seen each other? Maybe, but they wouldn't have known of one another at the time or thought much of it. But nevertheless, this is like the starting point, ground zero of what we're learning just recently. So if I just close that for a second, there's the casino. Over here, we've got that marker, Cafe Bingham cleaner, and then the marker, 4:48 on the 4th, coming and going, woman witnesses are side by side. You might wonder, well, where was that side by side on the highway? Near here? No. I just put it here for a start point or an end point. I do add the marker on further. You'll see that shortly, so don't worry. 2 guys, and they leave 20 minutes apart. So beside the brother, let's focus in first on the friend to anonymous member from Facebook. So I've got it highlighted in red for the journey down there, which that friend and that brother would have followed. First of all, we'll just focus in and put ourselves in the shoes of that friend, driving down the highway, thinking nothing of the situation because they're not anticipating what's going to happen next. They come through the town of Terrell. Of course, if they're coming through the town of Terrell before 4:30, if we're talking about the friend to anonymous member, they would have passed by the mini mart, wouldn't they? And then later on, when the brother to anonymous member was leaving, around 4:30 or so, would have passed by here too, because they're going the same way, down this highway. The reason why that's important is because supposedly in the early days, Jack Newton and more so Stevie Howard stated that the mini-mart cameras here did not show any traffic whatsoever. They didn't quite specify a time, I don't think. So there's no traffic whatsoever, then how come these 2 guys passed on down? Either it comes off one of 2 things. Either what Stevie and Jack says to an extent is true, so these anonymous member and the friend and the brother is all a BS story, or what Stevie Jack says is true for this area at a certain time, but not earlier, before Noah's death, supposedly, when these 2 guys are coming on down. Depends on the timeline. So both parties could be right in different ways, or neither could be correct. Depends how you look at it. We've done an analysis of this area already, so we don't need to focus on too much, but passing by this area would have been caught on camera supposedly. Continuing to drive down, and once we get to the area, I'll tap quite a bit just so we can speed ahead. It's a bit like a timeline, so you get to see it visually. They're driving down. They're not familiar with Noah Presgrove from the looks of it, and they weren't at the party nor invited to the party, had no interest within that. They were doing their own thing. So they were pretty much strangers. And this is really important because I've done videos in the past talking about whether it leads to Noah's death or post-death, how many other people were on the highway around that time, how many other secret witnesses or possible people of interest could have been present or nearby at the time. It's hard to tell because there's no camera surveillance further on down here, no street lighting either. But the people themselves who were in these places, they would know, and only they themselves. I think we're getting close to the party house, possibly. There we go. So that's the beginning of the party house property, as you see there. Coming down the highway. Oh, I've just gone past it. Give me a second. There we go. That's going down to the party house. And over there you can see the barn. And just as a heads up, what's her name? Casey Smith in 2024 said she heard that the barn was torn down. Well, Joyce Bergow, I think at some point in 2025, was driving down the highway and the barn was still there. So it was a lie. It wasn't torn down, just for information. Anyway, this is a prominent area for the brother to anonymous member. But earlier on, that 20-minute time difference, earlier, what did the friend of anonymous member see when coming down here? Well, I think what we can do, because we're pretty much in the area of the mark, if I just click off here for a second, we focus in on the markers here. It was stated between 5:15 to 5:20, the friend sees a naked guy walking in the ditch. They didn't say exactly where though. That's a problem, in a way. I've just put it there as an example, not as a fact, because there was no true coordinates given. It could have been very close to the party house, as you see marked there, or it could have been much further on. But it would have to be before where Noah's body was to be found, likely. Is there any small chance that was Noah Presgrove's walking in a ditch back this way, as in south towards Terrell? That's unknown of. It wasn't explained or made clear that way. So if we're just basing it off common sense, likely this friend that saw a naked guy walking was probably in this area, roughly. Of course, you can let me know where your guess is in regard to where a naked person could have been walking. And look, this isn't the first time of a story like that. When it came to the Dylan Rounds case, there was a few occasions of random people almost looking stranded, walking without any shoes. It applied to it applied to Dylan Rounds, supposedly. It applied to some girl or woman in the town or near to the town of Montello, Nevada. And then Chase Venstra, another person of interest to Dylan Rounds at the time, that didn't have shoes. There was a handful of people with missing shoes around that time or the build-up to Dylan's death around the area. It was a weird theme pattern going on. So if that's possible and happened, well then it's not too strange here. But under the circumstances that there's only one person likely that was seen and saw, whilst to this friend of anonymous member who couldn't identify or know of the actual person at the time, if we had to guess, even though no official name has been mentioned or identified, we would guess and assume it to be Noah Presgrove. And why is that? Well, before we go any further, let's just acknowledge between 5:15 to 5:20 is when this friend sees possibly Noah Presgrove naked and walking in a ditch in parallel to the highway. The reason why that's significant for two reasons. One, it conflicts with Caden Pressey's 5:15 timeline. I've put the marker over here so it doesn't overlap, it doesn't get in the way of all the other text. At 5:15, Caden Pressey stated Jack had already known of Noah's death and barged through the party house door, returning back to let people know Noah's dead at the highway. And that's at 5:15. Well, this witness going down that highway sees a naked person, likely Noah Presgrove, which would mean Noah Presgrove was alive at 5:15, which goes against Caden Pressey's timeline and implies that Caden is wrong. Now, I know we could say, well, who would you believe, Caden Pressey or some anonymous member on Facebook? Who can we really trust? Well, at the end of the day, you could say you can't trust anyone, or you listen to everyone and take it into mind. Because what Caden Pressey tells us, it's with words, not hard evidence. You know, as a general public, we've not seen hard evidence, just what he says or supposedly says. And he has been inconsistent at times. There have been discrepancies. It is documented as a fact, as we've, done the videos on. So you could argue and say this anonymous member is going against Caden's 5:15 timeline, implying that Noah was still alive by 5:15 onwards. It would be further reinforced by that Snapchat at 5:27 in the morning, where Mikey is still at the party house with Logan and Jasmine, and they're smiling like they didn't even know of Noah's death at that time because he may have still been alive. As for Jack Newton, though, Jack Newton said in the private text conversation on Facebook with, I think, Justin Roy, Whether it's what Jack knew of or was thinking, or he was passing it on from what the police told him as an opinion or a possibility, but not an absolute fact, because the police report stated unknown time of death, so likely an opinion, Jack had said 4 a.m. is when Noah Presgrove passed away. If that's really true, well then the so-called friend and brother would have seen Noah's body, or could have done by that time. And if not that, it's just the timing of it doesn't match with Caden's, but it also doesn't match with what we're looking at today, because if this friend had seen supposedly Noah naked walking at 5:15 when Jack says 4 a.m, an hour or more earlier when Noah actually passed away, wouldn't be true. There's conflict. So these two conflict with today's story of what we're looking at. But how does it compare to when Noah, and why Noah would be down the highway? Because if any of this is true, why is Noah naked first of all? And why is he walking? And at that time of 5:15, does it even make any sense? Well, let's refer back to the party house down here. When it came to Noah Presgrove, it was said he walked away from the party at 3:30, and it was Logan Jernigan that was last to see Noah walk away heading east. Now, Robin Smith, Ashley Chadwick in that Partners in True Crime interview said, well, actually, that's not the case. Jasmine Millan reached out to us at our house, or said, and told us that it was Avery to last see Noah walk away. Whether it's Avery or Logan or both of them, and maybe even Jack, if Jack and Avery had that verbal fight with Noah at that same time because of the bedroom debacle a bit earlier, who knows? But as Noah Presgrove is walking away from the party house, at least at 3:30, is he walking away naked or not? Is he literally walking out the house with a pair of mismatched shoes, no top, no shorts? Is that normal behaviour? You know, if you're desperate to leave or you need to run away or escape, you think you'd put some clothing on at least. Now, if you're winding down for bedtime, maybe you might be unclothed, so it would make sense if he was naked. But if you're denied a sleeping in one of the two girls' beds and you get angry and you want to walk away to cool off, you think you'd at least put some clothes on for decency at least. Yeah, you might be in the open and in a rural area, but just putting some clothes on to cover yourself out of self-respect, out of respect for other people, and just maybe as a normal thing. And yet what? Noah didn't do that, and he just outright walked off, heading east. It would have to be that way in order for it to tie in with what that so-called friend saw, as in a naked guy walking in that ditch near to the highway, right? As to see it. That way. And as I said, we don't know the exact area. You got the highway here, you got the railroad tracks there, and in between the railroad tracks and the highway, you've got the ditch. It's more prominent on ground street view imagery. So in this green area here, somewhere up this way, Noah Presgrove was supposedly seen walking. Not identified at the time, just a guy, but likely for it to be Noah, because who else would be walking off? Now, beside the timing of it, if Noah had walked away from the party house at 3:30, and Noah was seen walking down this way at 5:15 onwards, what the hell was going on in between that time? 3:30 to 5:15. It's like 2 hours plus or so, 2 hours time difference. That's a huge amount of time. Now, Caden Pressey said when Noah Presgrove would walk away from a party in general, he would be gone for 30 minutes. And then after that point, would return back. Well, in this case, Noah supposedly walked off from the party house at 3:30 and then was seen alive walking down in parallel to the highway at 5:15. 2 hours passing by. It doesn't take 2 hours to walk down here to then get onto parallel to the highway and walk up this way. It doesn't take 2 hours. So it makes me think that if any of this was to be true, when Noah walked away at 3:30, he came down heading east this way. And then maybe he did stop and he rested, or he leant against a vehicle, or leant against a tree, passing time. And then eventually, when it got to a point where it was time to return back, he thought, no, I'll walk away now and I'll go onto the highway. Whether he was thinking clear or not, if he did that, with time passing by in between, could get closer to that 2-hour mark. But still, what the problem is, if Noah Presgrove was gone for about 2 hours or so, already things have supposedly happened, because after 3:30, 30 minutes later, around 4 in the morning onwards, is when supposedly the partygoers went out searching for Noah. And it was between 4:15 to 4:20 when Avery and Brylan, I think, phone pinged at the first sandplank crossing here. And that's a problem, because depending what stretch and what ditch and which area, back down that way south, closer to the party house at 5:15 when this friend saw Noah walking naked, or if it be past the sandplank crossing and so far down that way, as there's a bit more of a prominent ditch, but before where Noah's body was to truly be found out further on that way. This whole stretch, for most part of it, at 5:15 onwards, right? And yet it was 4:15, roughly, when phones pinged in this area, from what's been said online, in regard to Avery and Brylan, I think, those two people. What I'm saying is, if at 5:15 a stranger can see Noah alive walking down here, then how come at 4:15 Avery, Brylan, even Logan, Carter, maybe Jasmine, how come they didn't see Noah earlier? What was Noah doing before 5:15? Where was he? Playing hide and seek with the party goers? How could Noah cover such little distance on foot within a 2-hour time frame window plus? Not to get very far, but to be found and caught later at 5:15, but earlier at 4:15, none of the partygoers were able to find or see Noah. So Noah was alive from 3:30 to 5:20, for example. What was he doing? Where was he? And why so little distance covered? That's why there's a bit of conflict, why there's a bit of a problem. And if the phones truly pinged in this area by the partygoers when searching for Noah, or maybe doing other darker things, depending which way you look at it, it still doesn't quite tie in with supposedly Noah caught by a stranger onwards. 4:15, then an hour and 15 minutes later, Noah is alive. So if anything dark happened at 4:15 to 4:20, well, it couldn't have done, because a stranger saw Noah alive at 5:15 onwards. So what were the partygoers doing then when searching for Noah? And how come they didn't find Noah if a stranger outright saw Noah? Was Noah playing hide and seek? Was he camouflaged? To be gone for that long, away from the party house for that long, and not to be seen or detected by anyone in between, is strange. And for the little distance to be covered is strange. That's why it's unusual from that friend's point of view, seeing a naked guy walking through a ditch. And we can find a bit more of a prominent ditch just before where Noah's body was to later be found, roughly speaking. A ditch, drainage, how it dips down there. I mean, all you can say is, it's more sensible to be walking there than it is to be walking on the highway, or even the hard shoulder. To be walking in the ditch is safer to do. But to even consider doing that in the first place, especially naked, especially the time of day and the poor lighting, why would anyone even consider doing that in the first place? And of course, I know if Noah was supposedly caught and seen naked walking about, whether he had shoes on or not, what about the white shorts? Or what about the so-called black shorts? If there was no clothing seen at the time, why was the clothing afterwards. That's why it doesn't quite add up or match in. But if there was no clothing originally, but then there is clothing later, then it does come across as possible foul play. If it was to be in that order at least. But you see a ditch also for drainage as well. It's mentioned in the past that at a previous party in the past, Noah Presgrove was found in a ditch, asleep or something. But in this case, Noah is upright and walking. And he's walking north. If any of that was true, besides the search party not being able to find him earlier, even though he would have covered less distance an hour and 15 minutes earlier, whilst that doesn't quite make sense, if we tried looking past that and just tried to understand why would Noah even be doing it in the first place, there is one possibility. And in a way, it kind of ties back to my original theory. An old video that I did, if you look back, that in this area when Noah Presgrove wanted to go home at some point early hours of Monday, and he was denied, he was rejected from Caden Pressey to other party goers. Maybe Noah finally adjusted and was okay, and that when it came to Brealey and Georgia, when they were leaving just before 2 a.m. of Monday, and when the two sisters of Brealey showed up, Noah Presgrove chatting with one of the girls, the sisters, wanting one of them to stay at the party, implying that Noah was already settled down by then despite wanting to leave earlier. Beside all of that, if at any point Noah Presgrove wanted to leave and felt denied or rejected, then when it came to the bedroom situation, denied and rejected, maybe Noah finally had enough of being rejected and turned down, that he thought, you know what, I've had enough now, I'll take matters into my own hand and I'll walk away and leave. But to do such an extreme act like that, where it involves walking 44.8 miles down a highway in the dark, that's not normal. Even if you're a long distance runner, under those circumstances, poor lighting, visibility, in parallel to a highway, train tracks as well, the hazardous areas, and being drunk, it's a recipe for disaster. Why would anyone even consider doing that? Well, one argument you could put forward, and I did so in the past, is you may do something impractical and rather dangerous if you're desperate. Desperate times, desperate measures. If Noah Presgrove desperately wanted to leave the property, the house, because he felt in danger, he felt something bad was going to happen or go down, and that's why he decided to leave, that might be the case. But, you know, if Noah Presgrove earlier was willing and able to get the keys to that side-by-side and then to start driving about recklessly or whatever, why didn't Noah Presgrove try stealing keys of someone's vehicle to desperately leave the area and drive down the highway? Yeah, it's dangerous, and likely, yeah, he could crash. But if Noah Presgrove was quite okay in getting in that side-by-side, regardless of the consequences for that, and thought it'll be okay, then why didn't Noah use that same mentality when trying to leave, if that's what he was trying to do, unless he realised by then and thought, no, it's just not practical, or it's not possible anymore, so I'll walk it. Or I'll try and get as far away as possible and then try and hitch a ride back home. Supposedly that's what Noah did once in the past, as it was described by other party goers. It still seems unrealistic. I understand that. It seems strange how if Noah walked away at 3:30 and yet he was seen walking down the highway at 5:15, what was he doing in between that time frame window of 2 hours plus? Was he just passing time up and down this road? The dirt road? Was he going into the fields? Where was he going? What was he doing? Because in that span of time, partygoers come and left looking for Noah and couldn't find him. And if Noah was still alive by 5:15, nothing dodgy or dark could have happened before that. So what would they have done to know if they did find Noah? It's very strange. It really is. And I'm showing you the ditch as well, the example of it. So that's what the friend saw. The friend simply saw a naked guy walking down in parallel to the highway at 5:15 to 5:20. Doesn't overlap with the later times. Now, if we take it from the point of view of the brother to anonymous member, 20 minutes afterwards of that friend ended up leaving the casino, coming down the same way as what that friend did. But did they see a naked guy walking? No. Anonymous didn't acknowledge that, nor did that other commenter mention it. So the brother did not see a naked guy, did not see Noah Presgrove, but the only thing that they did see was a blue sports car, at least. And that was pulling out from the party house property. What you see highlighted in blue, that blue line is basically the route and direction that blue car took, and also where it was seen, like the start point and supposedly the end point, which is further on. And like how it was described, if we move to the markers on the left-hand side, I've divided it out, spaced it out, so it's clearer for you to read on screen. That's all. But in terms of the location, one thing that's been mentioned, where that white line is basically where the car pulled out from. Party house property down that way, west, where the house is, and so on. The dirt road highlighted there. Brother only sees blue sports car. The blue car overtakes the brother. So basically this brother driving down here passed by the dirt road, passed by the blue sports car. Didn't let the blue sports car out. So as the brother is driving on down here, that Charger or that blue Challenger is right up his rear end. Probably because they want to take over, and they overtake, and they speed on. And as they speed off into the distance, coming all the way down here, near to or at the so-called scene, or later to be the scene of where Noah's body was to be found, round this area is where supposedly the blue car stopped for a few seconds or a minute and then sped off again. Why did the car stop, and where did it exactly stop? What I mean by that is, did it pull over onto the hard shoulder to stop when checking for maybe an item, checking for a phone in case they've left something back at the party house? Reassurance, checking the navigation system, looking something at their phone. You know, where you pull over for a second just to check your inventory, make sure you've got everything, or if you're doubting, questioning anything, and then once you've realised it's all good to go, then you continue on driving. Or was it that this blue car outright stopped on the highway, literally on the road, which is quite dangerous, especially with the poor lighting as well and the time of day. But it wasn't for that long and then sped on. Interesting. Speeding in a rush, and why? Were they speeding the moment they left the party house, or speeding once they stopped here and then moved on? Was there something which made them stop? And whatever they stopped for, did that cause them to then speed off going to Ryan? As if they saw something they weren't supposed to, or they catched up with something that they were involved in earlier, and now they're panicking and they're rushing, speeding on to get away, to escape. Interesting. This so-called brother that did not see any naked person walking is understandable, because the reason why is that friend to anonymous member was there 20 minutes earlier and saw someone alive, naked and walking north. 20 minutes later, when the brother comes on down, no sign of that naked person. Or is it that they're still there but further on and out of sight, if it ties in with the death of Noah Presgrove, and if that blue car has any involvement too? Not saying that the blue car hit Noah Presgrove or killed Noah in that sense, but I know some people could argue and say that might be the case if the car suddenly stopped and the brake lights went on. Did the car hit something and then felt responsible, realised what it was, took a few seconds to process and then panicked and sped off, so that would mean it's a hit and run? But a hit and run has been ruled out early in the case, so it can't be that, can it? Is it possible that Noah Presgrove was already dead, was already half dead, some kind of fatal injury, or passed out and flat on the floor, passed out, and then the vehicle, the blue car, runs over Noah's body, then stops, realises what's happened, panics, then speeds off. Would that be considered a hit and run? Or if Noah was somehow already dead and the car ran over Noah's body to cause further injuries, damage, then I don't think that would be a hit and run because the person's already dead. You've hit them, you're running, but the person's already dead for other reasons before that. I'm just thinking of different possibilities to try and even make sense of any of this. That's what it's all about, trying to make sense of it. If there's any truth whatsoever. I gave the estimated time 5:30 to 5:40. I think Tim Daniel gave a rough or a close estimate to that same said time because there's a 20-minute time difference from 5:15 or 5:20 to 5:30. So at the latest 5:20 when Noah Presgrove may have been seen alive, but 5:30 to 5:40, no sign of that person, only the sign of a blue car, a sports one. But who would be behind that blue sports car? Who's driving it? And why are they leaving at 5:30 exactly? I mean, it's interesting that time 5:30 because that, I think, is the time when Jasmine Milan woke up Jack Newton, I think. And Jack Newton, when woken up about Noah being missing, and Jack played it off like it's no big deal, had a little conversation with Mikey Lair, who never slept, from how it's been worded by some of those party goers. So we do have overlapping times of what other stuff was going on at the party at that time when other stuff was going on elsewhere. So supposedly at 5:30 when Jack wakes up or is woken up by Jasmine Milan amongst the news of Noah being missing, that's the same time when a blue sports car is leaving the party house property. That's interesting, that. Now, in terms of names or supposed names in the past about a blue sports car being present at a graveyard, being present near to a girl's house and stalking her supposedly, all kinds of random stuff going on there. And supposedly Cheryl Johnson was passing some of that information on, but then it was either misunderstood or it was wrong, and then there was apologies and it was a big mess. I said I looked at it lightly at the time. I did a live stream as well. I used appropriate language and wording. But in this case, with a blue car, is it the same blue car what was mentioned at the graveyard and elsewhere? Did it all belong to the same person? There was a blue sports car supposedly at the party house, and the original rumours were it was damaged, and then that individual, the owner to the car, had a fight with someone that was supposedly caused the damage, and there was a fight that outbroke, and that took place Saturday night evening, which caused Jack Newton and Noah Presgrove's fight argument to be broken up because they had to deal with this other blue sports car driver and someone else at the party. So it kind of broke up other tension there. And supposedly that never did happen in the end. A bit of a mess, to be honest. But if any of that was true or any of it links together, this blue sports car driver was there Saturday, were they there Sunday? But they were supposedly there Monday at least, coming and going, who knows? I think some people have made a reference saying it to do with one of Justin Roy's nephews, and then other people say, no, it's Colton Newton. But then Sarah Smith, the mother, says Colton has never owned a sports car, a muscle car, or anything like that. So it can't apply to him. What a mess. It really is. But at 5:30, if someone was leaving in a blue sports car, they wouldn't be the first to see Noah, technically, beside this so-called friend, because if you've got a search party that went out at 4 a.m, they should have been the first ones to come across Noah, right? But they didn't. That's why it's strange. With what happened hours on, it's very strange. But if you wanted to apply it to a partygoer in general was leaving, okay? So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's behind the wheel of the car or the vehicle. It doesn't even matter what colour the vehicle is. If it's just a fact, and that's uncertain as well, but if it's just as simple as, at that time, around 5:30, 5:40, someone was leaving, right, at that time, they could be a witness or a person of interest at the end of the day. Can't they? Just based on that, regardless of who's behind the wheel, could be a person of interest. But anyway, that guy or person in a sports car waiting to pull out and that so-called brother passes on by, guy in a blue sports car, or she, whoever, pulls out behind and at some point overtakes the guy and continues on. And at this point here where Noah Presgrove's body was to be found at a later point at 5:43, the blue car stops. Does it pull over or does it just stop? There's a difference. And then speeds off again. Of course, it could be innocent that blue sports car driver may have forgotten something or was double checking their phone, even if it is a bit reckless, and then sped off again. If they were speeding in the first place, they were in a rush to go somewhere. If they suddenly started speeding once they got to this point or just after, it's like they suddenly seen or heard something they weren't supposed to and then rushed away in panic. See, what do people think? That the blue sports car is involved in Noah's death? That the blue sports car is involved in disposing of Noah? Or that the blue sports car is an innocent person but just happened to come across Noah's body unexpectedly and panicked and just continued on like nothing happened? Or panicked and ran away? If you're innocent and you're not anticipating it, you should likely call the police or go back to the party house to let people know what's going on. If you panic and run away, even if you've got no responsibility in Noah's death in the first place, it does make you look a bit dodgy and guilty. You should just call it into police, anyone like that, like Tyler Hoodman, Tyler Hardy. So that's why it's odd. What vehicle was Chris Pyatt driving at the time? I think that might have been a pickup, so I don't think it links to a blue sports car. So what are people more interested in? The timing of when the car pulled out of the party house property, or where the car ended up, braking at and then moving on? Is it just a coincidence that where the blue sports car parked up or braked at where Noah's body was to be found? Was that a coincidence, or was it meaningful or purpose behind it? Was that blue sports car checking quickly to see if Noah was truly dead, to make sure it was finished, the job, and then continued on like nothing happened? It makes you think. As long as it's near or at the area of the scene, then it does make that blue sports car driver a person of interest, as in, what did they see? Whether they stopped the car for a particular reason or not, what did they see in the area at 5:40 onwards? I mean, we've got to be careful with the timing, because this blue sports car is very close to the timing of when Tyler Hoodman was about at 5:43, when the first call was made in by Tyler Hoodman. And by that time, I think he already turned back round and was heading north to eventually turn back round again to get onto the other side of the highway. Because he was going south, he couldn't stop because there was a convoy of vehicles, went down to Terrell, if not beyond, to then turn around, come up north, as in approaching Ryan, I think, and then turn back round again to come south and then park up. Tyler Hardy was able to do it on his first try and made a successful call at 5:53. So, even if it was 5:30 onwards, this so-called brother to anonymous member and that blue sports car driver should have passed by Tyler Hardy and Hoodman somewhere up this way, because both of them are going north, but Tyler Hardy and Tyler Hoodman are coming down south, so they would have passed by one another. But if it was so far on, Tyler Hardy and Hoodman probably wouldn't have thought much about it. So by the time Tyler Hardy and Hoodman came down to here, unexpectedly coming across Noah's body and clothing in the middle of the highway, they would have been, in their mind, the first ones on scene, pretty much. But there is that problem. If it's in a short time frame window, at least, that you've got, first of all, 5:20 at the latest, supposedly. You've got the friend that sees Noah naked, no clothing whatsoever. Then at 5:30, or roughly, you've got the brother that doesn't see Noah, but does see a blue car, and it does overtake them. Then it does stop near to the scene of where Noah's to be found, but the brother does not see Noah and does not see anything onwards. No clothing in the middle of the road. No body near to where the blue car parked up or stopped at. in defence, Cheryl Johnson or whoever else said it in the comments mentioned that this so-called guy that told her in the first place was too busy focusing on what was ahead and the blue car itself. With being close to it, by the time that blue car moves on and you continue on while still steadily driving, you may have not had enough time to look to your left as to why that car stopped in the first place. If you were already close to that vehicle or approaching it, and you're focusing on speed and distance to the vehicle, you probably wouldn't be thinking of what's around. If you are at a distance and you saw the car stop and then you continue driving on to get to that point where that vehicle originally stopped, then you could stop yourself and have a look around and see what was there. But supposedly, due to the distance and proximity, weren't able to do so. That might excuse why that brother wasn't able to see anything. But if they took it slower and were at a distance further away, they might have been able to stop and look around and think, what made that blue car stop at this point? Is Noah here? Yes or no? If Noah was seen alive at 5:15, 5:20, walking naked, but the brother didn't see it at 5:30 onwards, at what point did Noah die, and where and how exactly? And was that blue car involved in any way? They're the different questions. But, even, for example, at 5:30 onwards, it's like 12, 13 minutes time difference to when Tyler Hoodman made the call. But as said, from the looks of the call by Tyler Hoodman at 5:43, Tyler was already turning back round and already heading north, I think, up the highway. So it's actually before 5:43 when Tyler Hoodman passed down here, meaning it's very close to the time frame window at the blue car driving on and that brother. So they should have seen each other, but there's not been a mention of that. So that's a little bit odd, in a way. There might be some points I've not touched upon yet, but there's only so much that I can think of in the moment. The only other thing to acknowledge is to do with, where did I put the marker? It was actually early on. Do you know when we said about the woman that saw a side-by-side speed off? It had its lights on and it appeared from the hard shoulder area and drove onto the highway and sped off. In which direction I can't remember. And whether the woman was coming or going from that casino where the guys did at a later point shows the level of activity. But that was supposed at 4:48 and it was within a mile or so of where Noah's body was to be found later. So at 4:48, no mention of the woman seeing Noah's body at that time at least. But she saw the side-by-side. What was that side-by-side doing there on the highway? Who was behind the wheel? Any passengers? Who knows? And was it them disposing of Noah's body in that side-by-side? Was it them searching for Noah in some way? Unusual. Okay, 4:15 to 4:20 is when Avery and Brylands was pinging at the Sandplank crossing, unless 20, 30 more minutes onwards they were still out there searching in a side-by-side, and then when they were leaving to go back to the party house to return back, coming across that woman scared by him at 4:48. That's all I can think of. Whilst this happens earlier and the other events happen after, it could all occur in a certain time frame order, but anything that happened before, like this time or earlier, it couldn't have been suspicious or foul play around that time period for if Noah Presgrove was to be found or seen alive at 5:15 at least onwards. If at 4:48 anything bad had happened with that side-by-side, anything to do with Noah in any way, in terms of darkness and foul play, couldn't be the case based on that supposed claim of the friend to the anonymous member seeing a naked guy alive and walking, which could have been Noah or should have been, because who else would it be? So you can see that even when there's no overlap, there can be conflict with times. That's why it's not all going to link together as one big timeline. It could be many separate ones in fragments, but I was just trying to put it together to understand it in a way. Don't mean to say we've completely solved it, but just wanted to show you what it visually looks like or what it could be. So likely Tyler, Hoodman and Hardy should have seen that blue sports car and that so-called brother, and maybe even that friend as well at some point. But would they be able to remember that? That's the question. As I said, the marker, the blue car speeds off towards Ryan or turns off just before Ryan. and the brother cannot see the car anymore. So they were in a rush, they needed to leave. You let me know down below as to why you think they were speeding. So yeah, I just wanted to get that video done and visually. As said, a few days ago, I was going to do it anyway, but I needed to catch up with some other previous stuff, tie up some loose ends and give updates there. So then I could focus all in on this video in particular and take in mind the other events that followed before or after or in between from different sides of the story and different people within it all. That's why I wanted to combine it together. It is interesting though that the casino, there's more activity going on there as a start point or an end point for people coming and going within the area. So it isn't just a party house, it's not just the highway area, it's beyond and so on. But you know, this type of thing that's being talked about, I'm surprised it wasn't mentioned much earlier on in the case, whether it be truth or not. You know, people want to push certain outlooks and aspects, but whether it's true or not, the attitudes behind people in the community is eye-opening, because there's mention of a blue sports car leaving the party house, which could be a new witness, another witness on top of it all, because it's gone from a description of a blue sports car, then changed to a dark coloured vehicle. Then it's kind of turned everything upside down as in, well, if it's a blue sports car, it's something to do with Justin Roy's nephews or so, as people claim. But if it's a dark or black coloured sports car, then it's got something to do with Colton Newton. So it's kind of shifted back and forth from different sides of people pushing it one way or the other. Then the mention of 2024 with Colton Newton, 2015 Dodge Challenger or Dodge Charger, whichever one it was, and that guy called Lucas. I suppose at the end of the day, the vehicle didn't belong to Colton, right? But people were trying to link one thing with another, a separate event, but with a similar type of vehicle possibly, then apply it back to the party house property in 2023 and say, well, if it was there in 2023, the description at some point matched the description in 2024. Same vehicle, same person, must have been the same thing. So that person was responsible. It wasn't Justin Roy's nephews, it was Colton Newton. But then in between it goes back and forth, doesn't it? So it's like people trying to find links to either shift the focus or blame elsewhere, and vice versa from both sides. Or some people are just genuinely confused and trying to work it out bit by bit, because you will get genuine people that switch and change as well in between. Either way, yeah, it's messy, but if you slow it down and visually look at it, you can make more sense of it. And hopefully the video today, with what we've already heard of or know of, you can let me know whether it conflicts with this story, if it reinforces it, if it goes against it, if it shows any inconsistencies, if it shows any overlaps, any contradictions. That's why it's important to compare and contrast with other events happening at the same time or near to try and figure out what's true and what's not, or what's been exaggerated. You'd hope to think that these so-called people that have said what they've said have reached out to the correct people in the background, but like when Brenda and Andrea inquired about it, there was no response, which is disappointing. Does the victim's family, Noah Presgrove, even know of any of this? Have they ever heard of it before? Doesn't seem to be the case. So we'll see what happens next. But look, as I told you some months ago, during this long period of silence, a wall of silence when things in the background officially are getting going or moving forward slowly, for the general public, not much to do. So people may twiddle their thumbs more and dig in deeper, find more stuff, or some may create more stuff in unnatural ways. Could this be an example? You let me know in the comments. But at the end of the day, I hope you found the video interesting. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, the like button, share the video, spread it about for that awareness so people learn about it. And if you're on mobile, hit the hype button down below. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate that. My name's Noah Presgrove. Goodbye. Good night for now.